Welcome friends, welcome to Sri Swaminarayan Defense Academy. Today we are going to start our new chapter, that is life processes in living organism part 1. In that we are going to focus on types of reproduction, that is asexual and sexual, then reproduction and modern technology, reproductive health. And so by the term reproduction, what are the points that are coming to your mind? Reproduction. What do you think? Why this reproduction is necessary? Reproduction is necessary to continue the race of that particular species. Imagine that if particular species, whether it's plant, animal or any kind of bacteria, if they do not reproduce, will the further generation will occur? No. And if the next generation is not coming into existence, definitely that species is going to extinct. Is this favorable for the ecology or environment? No. So to maintain the balance between the ecology, okay, reproduction is important to continue the race, or you can say the species, okay, important to continue the race or to continue the species. So while reproducing, different kind of organisms acquire or adapt the different kinds of methods. So while reproducing, different organisms acquire the different method. So first we will discuss about the asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is mostly seen in the lower organism, and also in some environmental conditions like unfavorable condition, deficiency of nutrients in the environment, okay. But while asexual reproduction, the new organism of the species is forming without the involvement of gamete. So asexual reproduction does not involve the fusion of gametes, okay. What are the gametes then? There are two types of gametes. One is male and another is female. And fusion of these two gametes gives rise to zygote, okay, gives rise to zygote. Zygote is the first single cell from which a complete individual occurs, whether it's multicellular or unicellular. From the zygote, the entire organisms occur. How? These zygote undergo which divisions? Meiotic division or mitotic division. These zygote, for increasing the number or for growing purpose, which type of cell division it is acquiring? It is undergoing the process of mitotic division, and because of which it reproduce and it grow. See here they have said it undergo the mitotic division. For reproducing the new organism for growth purpose, they are utilizing the mitotic division. Asexual reproduction in different kinds of organisms, okay. So first we are going to discuss about the binary fission. Binary fission in amoeba. Do amoeba have their own shape, size? Do they have any kind of locomotory structure? No, they have the pseudopodia. Amoeba have the pseudopodia. Reproduce, right? With the help of pseudopodia, this organism reproduce. So how does this reproduce? From single cell, from single organism, it tries to divide its nuclear material, then the cytoplasmic content, and from single cell it gives rise to two daughter cell. From single cell it gives rise to two daughter cells. Is there any kind of advanced or sophisticated sophisticated involvement, any kind of involvement is there, sophisticated technique? No, just a simple division of single cell into two cell. Therefore, it is known as simple binary fusion. There is just two processes involved, karyokinesis and cytokinesis. As the morphological structure of this amoeba is abrupt, the shape, size is of different kind. They do not have their own shape, size, locomotor structure. It is just a single cell. That's why it divides or it separates out the nuclear and cytoplasmic conduct, and from one, two cells are formed. Next is your binary fission. Which organism is involved in this? Paramecium. In transverse binary fission, paramecium is involved. What happens in paramecium? There is a transverse or a horizontal cut between the organism which is dividing its all organ. You can see here the cytopharynx, micro and macronuclei are divided. These, by the horizontal cut, it is dividing into two parts, and slowly and steadily again it is forming two separate paramecium or two separate daughter paramecium, right? In each and every paramecium you can see each and every structure. Contractile vacuole is also seen, nucleus is also seen, cytopharynx is also seen in paramecium. There is just a responsible for, or it is defining the fissions, different kinds of fission in different organism. In amoeba there is simple kind of fission, that is one cell pull apart the material and two daughter cells are formed. But in paramecium there is horizontal cut or there is horizontal division, and because of that from one paramecium you get two daughter paramecium. Longitudinal binary fission. In this, what happens? Which example is considered for longitudinal binary fission? Euglena. Here there is a vertical cut, and because of that you get two daughter euglena. Here also whatever the flagellum is there, it is divided. Nuclear material first get divided. Here the karyokinesis is also seen. After karyokinesis, the splitting of the organism vertically increases, and hence it starts to pull apart slowly and steadily, and finally you get the completely separated euglena. Two daughter euglena or two organisms separately you can try to understand with the help of diagram. What is multiple fission? Multiple fission again it is seen in again amoeba, but what type of condition here it is? It is adverse environmental. Here it is adverse environmental condition, because when there is ample amount of nutrient, good temperature, surrounding is clean and hygienic for that organism, it undergo simple binary fission. One organism is dividing rapidly into 2 to 4 and so on, their colony is increased. But whenever the environmental condition is abrupt or adverse, there is scarcity of food, the amount of food is not ample for the organisms. In such condition, this amoeba is converted into which form? Cyst form. Cyst is a spore in which the amoeba undergo the process of cyst formation. In this cyst formation, there is increase in amount of calcium. There is increase in amount of calcium into the surrounding covering or the cyst. This is known as the cyst. This covering known as the cyst. There the amount of calcium is more, because of which the harsh environmental condition do not affect the organism, and the organism itself survive within the cyst. So now what happens when the cyst is there? As there is no extra food amount or there is no ample amount of food, and environmental conditions are also not good. So in such condition, amoeba convert into cyst form. The cyst is the outer covering which has a high amount of calcium and dipicholinic acid in it. Okay, whatever the spore formation or cyst formation is seen in these unicellular organisms, there is the presence of dipicholinic acid into their outer covering, which makes it hard. High amount of calcium, that's why the structure is hard. The environmental condition or the chemicals cannot affect them easily. So within the cells, now whatever the nucleus was present within the cells present, now this nucleus starts to divide. There is division of nucleus, and this division of nucleus, multiple division of nucleus, starts to form individual organisms within itself. But do the cyst rupture? No. Within the cyst itself, there is only karyokinesis. Only karyokinesis. Okay, there is only division of nucleus. There is only division of nucleus. And whenever the environmental conditions are favorable, whenever the amount of food is in ample, in such condition, the spore or the cyst form is ruptured. So from this ruptured cyst, many of the daughter amoeba comes outside. From this cyst, in favorable condition, amoeba burst open and new daughter amoeba are formed. See how many amoeba are formed from single amoeba. As the food amount was not there, environmental condition was not good, so it encysted itself, it converted itself into cyst form. So within the cyst, whatever single nuclei was there of the parent amoeba, it started to divide and redivide, and within the cytoplasm there was formation of many of such daughter amoeba. And when the environmental condition was again good, and with the ample amount of food at that time, the daughter amoeba came out of this cyst form. Okay, budding is seen in your which organism? Yeast is a fungi. Okay, this yeast is a fungi. This fungus undergo the process of budding. What do you mean by bud? In plants, you must have seen that whenever a new leaf is start to grow, there you see small aberration, small bulging of that part, right? And this bulging of part gives rise to further leaves. Similarly, within the parent yeast cell, there is small bulge, and this small bulging of this small portion increases, and then finally it separates from its parent, and you get the daughter yeast cell. Okay, in budding, simple, there is bulging in the parent organism, and this bulging increase, there is again division of nuclear and cytoplasmic material, and this bulging part separates out completely. There is no any kind of cut seen in these organisms. There is just bulging, separation of materials, nuclear and cytoplasmic, and there is separation. Yeast is also showing a sexual reproduction, that is unicellular fungi. Yeast is a unicellular fungus showing a sexual reproduction. And then which type of cell division it undergo? It undergo the mitotic division. Cell produce two daughter nuclei by simple mitotic division. They reproduce by so as to reproduce by budding. Internally, there is mitotic division of the nucleus. Once this nucleus divide by the process of mitosis, then bud form, and this bulging of as the nucleus separates, there is bulging, and once the bulging is seen, it is completely slowly separating the new daughter, and independently daughter yeast cell is acquired or it is seen. Till now we have discussed the sexual reproduction in unicellular organism, eukaryotic unicellular organism. First example we discussed about the amoeba, simple binary fusion, separation of nuclear material. Second, the horizontal right? Horizontal fission, or you also say it as transverse binary fission in paramecium. Then we discuss about the longitudinal binary fission in euglena. Then we discuss about the budding process in yeast. It is a unicellular fungi. And now we'll discuss about the asexual reproduction in multicellular organism. Multicellular organisms such as your Spirogyra, then Planaria, etc. First we will discuss about the fragmentation. In fragmentation, each Spirogyra forms the asexual reproduction in multicellular organism. Okay, in this the organism breaks into many fragments. Organisms breaks into many fragments. It is mostly seen in your Spirogyra. What are the example of these? Spirogyra, then sponges like Sycon. Sponges, the first porifera. Okay, so the phylum Porifera, organism belonging to phylum Porifera, these are the sponges, right? Sycon and Spirogyra shows the reproduction with the help of fragmentation. Each fragments then afterwards perform individual function. So this division may be due to accident or because of any kind of forces. This organism breaks accidentally and new fragment is formed, and this new fragment individually gives rise to new organism and it starts its functioning. Next is regeneration. Regeneration, you must have seen the lizard in your home, right? Whenever you try to beat that lizard, it breaks its tail and falls up. We only observe that tail, but till that time the lizard is gone somewhere else. In such cases, there is regeneration of organisms part. Regeneration means the cells present over there, over the part, they redivide by mitotic division, divide and redivide, and again that particular portion which was cut or which was amputated, it is formed again. In Planaria, they have given various type of regeneration. Here the head region they amputated, here tail region is amputated, and further what happened? A new organism is again formed. Here they amputated their whole lower body part, and here they amputated whole upper body part, but still the small portion of the cells gives rise to this entire organism, right? Why? Because the cells present in this region, they have the potential to regenerate all the cells present at the upper and lower extremities of these organisms, and because of which new organisms was formed, performing its own function. So regeneration of remaining part of the body by two Planaria, and this is called as regeneration. Here budding is in which kind of organism? Again in multicellular organism. Again here budding is seen in the multicellular organism, that is Hydra. Okay, so now this budding is seen in your Hydra. Again here when unfavorable condition or under the favorable condition, these organisms starts to form a bud or a outgrowth. This outgrowth is known as bud, and this bud then progressively develops here. What you can see, that whatever your digestive system and the external skin, that is epidermal layer which is there, these all are in continuing with this bud. That is internally, if you see this bud grow, right? Now it grows completely, but the digestive system of this bird and whatever the skin was there, epidermal layer was there, it was in continuity with the original organism, and from this original organism it gives rise to new bird, and after that this bird, after complete formation and complete independent nature, after acquiring the independent nature, it separate out. So parent hydra here supplies the nutrition to the budding hydra. Okay, parental hydra is. Next is vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation, reproduction from the plant parts. Okay, what are the parts of plant? Root, stem, leaf, flower, petal, whatever. Okay, etc. So from the reproduction from root, stem, leaf and bud is called as vegetative propagation. Vegetative. Does the gametes are involved here? No. Male female gametes are involved in this process? No. The formation of or the occurrence of new organism is seen with the help of already present plant parts. So you must have seen the sugarcane plant. In sugarcane plant there is presence of nodes and internodes. Okay, there is presence of these nodes and this is known as internode. This nodal and internodal region gives rise to new plant. Okay, similarly potato, whenever you potato brings home, keep it for a week or two, you start to see small birds on the potato. These are known as eyes, and if you cut open these eyes and sow into the soil, you will get a new plant sapling. Similarly, from in case of bryophyllum, the leaf is involved in formation of a new plant. Here in potatoes, its tuber is responsible for formation of a new plant. So in vegetative propagation, what you have to remember is that the vegetative parts like root, stem, leaf gives rise to new individual, new plant. Okay. Okay. Next is spore formation. Spore formation, again it is a part of your fungus. Fungus will grow on it. So spore formation is seen in your fungus, that whenever fungus grows, it releases these spores germinate and again new fungus is formed. You have seen sometimes you left over the piece of bread or any food material for long period of time, on it such kind of fungus has grown, black, white or greenish structures have grown, which have, if you see properly, you will see the hair like structures in it, right? You must have seen such hair like structure. Then white blackish spots, these all are spores. So these spores are of mucor like fungus. Example, mucor. These mucors grow into filamentous body, and the filamentous body then possesses the sporangium in which lots and lots of spores are present, and these spores break open, and again the break open spores goes on clean surface, and there it starts to germinate again a new fungal body. Okay, this filament of fungus, they are known as hyphae. Filament of this fungus is known as hyphae. Okay, filament of these fungus is known as hyphae. For the spore germination is usually moist, warm, humid. Sexual reproduction involves the fusion of gametes. Here, which type of gametes? Male gamete and female gamete. But these gametes undergo the process of, how this gamete formation takes place? By the process of meiotic division. In earlier lecture we discussed the cell division, why the cell division is necessary, what are the types of cell division. There we studied the meiotic cell division. This meiotic cell division gives rise to your gametes. Which gametes? Male gamete and female gamete. Here the chromosome number is haploid. You can see the haploid number of chromosomes. Okay, so when the fusion of these gametes occur, and this fusion of gametes is known as fertilization. there is a specific term for fusion of these gametes. Whatever first cell is formed, it is known as zygote, and the process of fusion is known as fertilization. Okay, so these gametes are formed by meiotic division. The chromosome number is haploid, that is end condition is seen, and whenever these gametes fuse, that is haploid male gamete and haploid female gamete fuse, there is formation of a diploid zygote. That is, half number of chromosomes come from male, half chromosome number come from female, and their combination gives rise to a diploid zygote. This zygote is a single cell with diploid set of nucleus or chromosome. So whenever this zygote is seen or fertilization occur, the fertilization give rise to a single cell, that is zygote, which have the diploid diploid set of chromosome, and this zygote then undergo further division, redivision by the process of undergo the mitotic division, mitotic cell division, to form a multicellular organisms. And whatever the organism which is formed, it is a combination of both mother as well as father. Whatever kind of combination of recombination of character is seen, this is because of the exchange of the genetic material between the parents. If you recall the meiotic division, there comes one stage, that is pachyteny, then diploteny, where the chiasmata formation, synaptonymal complex is complex was seen in prophase first. There what happened? There the genetic material between the maternal and paternal chromosome exchange. There was a recombination of genetic material, and this is responsible for variation in the individual itself. It is not a Xerox copy of mother or a father. It has some characters of mother and some character of father, and of its own too. So diversity in organism occur due to genetic variation, and these variations are because of the recombination seen during the meiotic division. So plant contain 4 main whorls. Main whorls or main reproductive structure. So plant contains the flower, which have 4 important whorls, that is calyx. In this diagram, flower is involved in sexual reproduction. In case of plants, most of the time this flower is involved in the sexual reproduction. So in flower there are 4 kind of whorls, that is 4 important structures is seen. So what are the structure? It is corolla, calyx, gynoecium and androecium. Okay, the important whorls present in the flower are gynoecium, androecium, calyx and corolla. Individual member of corolla is known as petal. In common language, you say petals, sepals, right? So the individual member of calyx is known as sepal. Individual member of corolla is known as petals. Gynoecium is made up of again 3 different structure. If I draw this structure of gynoecium separately, it will look like this. Okay, it will be like this. So as this gynoecium and androecium, gynoecium is female structure and androecium is male structure of that plant, which is involved in sexual reproduction. So this gynoecium, as being the female part of the reproductive structure, it is made up of stigma. This tube-like structure is known as style, and at the base there is ovary. Okay, at the base there is ovary with the number of ovules. The small round structure is ovules. Similarly, androecium is made up of anther and filament. Androecium is made up of anther and filament. So what you have to remember in flower? 2 things: accessory whorls and essential. See, Here it is written essential whorls and your accessory whorls. So what is the essential whorl? Androecium and gynoecium. As androecium and gynoecium is involved in sexual reproduction in plant, it is therefore it is known as the essential whorls. And why this calyx and corolla is known as accessory whorl? Because it is involved in the, it is just supporting the process of reproduction. How it is supporting? Suppose there anther, the pollen grains. So this is the structure of your anther, right? Anther. This is filament, and this anther have the pollen grain. This pollen grain should transfer to this stigma of gynoecium. So can it transfer automatically? No, there are different methods or different agents of there are different agents. It may be biological, or simply you can say there are biotic and abiotic factors which are involved in the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of your gynoecium. So biotic factors, what biotic factors are coming to your mind? It may be humans, insects, birds. Okay, these may be responsible for transferring of pollen grain from anther to stigma of your gynoecium. Okay, so what role this calyx and corolla may be playing? So this bright and beautiful color of your corolla attracts the insect, the smell, their nectar. These things attract the insects, birds, also humans sometimes. And once they come to fetch the nectar, to take the nectar, and by just taking the nectar or just visiting the flower, because of the involvement activity, the pollen grains are transferred to your gynoecium itself, corolla. They are playing important role just to attract the insects or your birds, so that they will help in the process of pollination. Abiotic factors like wind, then your water, these are the one which are taking part in your. Do you think that always there is there any kind of compulsion that both the male and female part, that is male part and female part of the flower, that is androecium and gynoecium, should present in single flower? No, there is no any kind of hard and fast rule or compulsion that both the parts should be present in single flower. There are some flower which are unisexual. What do you mean by unisexual? That from gynoecium or androecium only single structure may be present. It may be gynoecium or it may be androecium, but at a time in single flower only single reproductive structure will be seen. What? And in case of bisexual flower, in bisexual flower both the male as well as female reproductive part are seen. Okay, so example of bisexual flower, you can remember the hibiscus. In hibiscus you will see the anther filament present on the gynoecium structure. Here you will see that 5 pentamerous structure of anther, right? They burst open, and here pentamerous structure of this gynoecium, and here the anthers are present. This releases the pollen grains which are then transferred to your gynoecium. In such cases, or in case of hibiscus, there is presence of androecium as well as gynoecium. Such flower is known as bisexual flower. Example is hibiscus. Flowers with just a single reproductive structure, it is known as unisexual flower. And example you can keep in mind is papaya. Okay, in single flower single reproductive structure will be There should be some kind of base to support the flower, and the stalk which is supporting the flower, is known as pedicel, and the flower which is without the pedicel is known as sessile flower. The flower without this stalk or without this small base like structure, it is a sessile flower, and the flower which is with this stalk is known as pedicel, and the flower with the pedicel is known as pedicellate flower. Okay, simply just remember that the flower should have some base so that it can attach to the stem of the plant, right? If that stem is having some stalk like structure on which the flower is placed, so such stalk is known as your pedicel, and the flower which have the pedicel, such flower is known as pedicellate flower, and the flower without stalk or without the pedicel, it is known as sessile flower. There is one point that the individual member of gynoecium is known as carpel. Don't confuse with the confusion that single member of the gynoecium is known as, in simple word, it is known as carpel. Single term, it is having a carpel, and the androecium, that is male whorl, single member is known as stamens. Carpel is made up of stigma style ovary. The gynoecium, female reproductive part, single member is known as carpel, having stigma style ovary. An individual member of your anther and individual member of your androecium is known as stamen. Okay, this is your stamen. What this single member of androecium stamen is having? Anther. It is having anther and filament. It is having anther and filament. Anther bursts open and it releases the pollen grains. Okay, it bursts open and it releases the pollen grains. So pollen grains are transferred from anther to stigma. Okay, so the factors which are involving in the transfer of this pollen grain, it may be abiotic factor or the biotic factor. Abiotic factor may be wind, water. Biotic factor involves insect, animals, birds, etc., etc. So the process of transfer of anther, the process of transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma is known as pollination. The process of transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma is known as pollination. Different agents are involved in the process of pollination. What are the agents? Abiotic and biotic. Biotic may be all the living kind of organism, and abiotic means non-living organism or non-living things such as wind, water, etc. So how this fertilization or sexual reproduction occur in these plants? So whenever the pollen grain, we will try to understand the sexual reproduction in plants. So till now you have understood that sexual reproduction involves two main whorls or the essential whorls, that is androecium, gynoecium. Androecium's individual member is known as stamen. Gynoecium individual member is known as carpel. Carpel contains stigma style ovary. Anther, your stamen contains anther and filament. Anther burst opens to release the pollen grains. Now these pollen grains are transferred from anther to stigma, and this process is known as pollination. And once the pollination happens, once the pollen grain is reached to this stigma, then what happens? This pollen grain germinates and starts to form a pollen tube. Okay, when this pollen grain reached on the stigma, now because of some chemical reactions, it starts to develop the pollen tube. In pollen tube, you will see two in pollen grains you will see two haploid male nuclei. Okay, nuclei. These two haploid nuclei are transferred with the help of pollen grain to the ovary. Okay, to the ovary. Within the ovary, what you will see? In the ovary, there is presence of embryo sac. Within the ovary, you will see the embryo sac, and also so once the pollen grain reached to the stigma, it starts to develop the pollen tube. Because the chemical reactions happened, the chemicals were released, the pollen grain get the signal that now it should germinate. So once the pollen grain start to germinate, it forms a pollen tube. Pollen tube have two male nuclei, two haploid male nuclei. Okay, they are transferred to where? Ovary region. They are transferred to ovary. If you discuss the structure of ovary, in ovary there is presence of polar nuclei. Okay, and here there is presence of egg cell. Surrounding the egg cell there is presence of synergid, and these at the anterior portion there is presence of antipodal cells. This is the ovary. If you see the internal structure of ovary, there is presence of haploid polar nuclei within the center, and at the two poles, at upper pole or anterior region, there is presence of antipodal cells with again haploid nuclei, and at the base, at the micropylar end, there is presence of three cells, out of which two are synergid and one is your egg cell. So now these two male nuclei, from two male nuclei, one comes and fuse with polar nuclei. Okay, and one comes and fuse with this egg cell. Okay, so whenever the pollen grain comes to stigma, it germinates the pollen tube reaches the ovary. Okay, pollen tube contains two male nuclei, out of which the one male nuclei fuses with polar nucleus, and one fuses with the egg cell. The one which is going to fuse with egg cell is going to give rise to zygote, and the one male nuclei which is going to fuse with the polar nucleus is going to give rise to the endosperm. What is endosperm? Endosperm is a nutritive material which is going to support the development of zygote, and this process of fertilization is known as double fertilization. Why? Because here there is fusion of two male gamete with two different entity of your carpel. Okay, or the ovary structure. As why you call it as double fertilization? Because in double fertilization, the two male nuclei individually fertilizes two different structures of female reproductive part, that is the ovary. In ovary there is presence of polar nuclei, antipodal cell, then micropylar cell, contain egg cell and synergid, out of which one male nuclei comes and fuse with polar nuclei and gives rise to endosperm. The one which is going to fuse with egg cell is further going to give rise to the zygote. And what is this endosperm? Endosperm is a nutritive material which is going to support the development of this zygote. That's why such kind of fertilization in plants which involve the two male gamete is known as double fertilization. Once the pollen grain come to stigma, okay, it germinates the pollen tube. Pollen tube contain two haploid male gamete, okay, two haploid male gamete. So this pollen tube germinates and reach where? It reached to the ovary. Ovary contain different types of cell, but what we have to remember is, we have to just remember the polar nucleus and the egg cell. So the one which is going to fertilize the egg cell is going to give rise to zygote, and the one male nuclei which is going to fertilize with the polar nucleus, it is going to give rise to endosperm. Now the question arises, what is endosperm? So endosperm is a nutritive material which is going to support the development of zygote. Pollination is also seen in two different types, that is self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination is that single plant, the flower present on the single plant, maybe it is single or double, whatever the number of flowers may be there, if single plant is itself involved in the process of fertilization or exchange of the pollen grains, then it is known as self-pollination. But where there is involvement of two flowers born on two different plants, then it is known as cross-pollination. Simple, by this diagram you will understand that if you consider the single plant, there are three flowers, right? On the single plant there are three flowers. If the pollen grains from this flower of same plant are transferred to the stigma of the flower of same plant, then it is known as self-fertilization. But if there is involvement of two different plants and the flowers of two different plants, there is exchange of the pollen grain between the two different plants, then it is known as cross-pollination.